Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Nand.
Alaikum assalam. How are you?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Nand. How are
Assalamu
you?
alaikum. Very good. How are you? Yeah,
Good.
Myra.
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. So we're gonna start in a couple of minutes, but do you have any questions before we start?
Well, for me, I already started working on the project, but I got stuck on a phase. That's
No
why
problem.
yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
How about you, Myra?
No questions. I really want to just work on this project, the INR, and get something out of it for sure.
That's
So
good.
yes.
Excellent. How is the application process going for you both?
Pretty stressful. Getting everything in place. The personal statements, LORs, and program searches and stuff. So it's pretty stressful time.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Wishing you all the best, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Nand.
Inshallah, yeah, we really need that.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Do you have any advices for us at this stage in the process?
I think you just search the program that you think it's right for you, make your list and work hard on, I'm not sure if it's gonna be virtual, but the interview process, if it's in person or virtual, practice as much as you can and make plans like how you will answer questions, even questions that you don't anticipate. So there is a way to divide the answer into sections, like you don't give the answer right away and you pretend you're thinking, some tricks.
Okay.
Just play with this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nand.
You're welcome. Sometimes you answer your question with information about other aspect that you can highlight.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
inshallah.
thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm not expecting a lot of people. It's during the day, so some might be busy, still working. So this part will be recorded for anyone who can review this material later. But let's start and welcome everyone. So today we're gonna go over some of the basics and then we will see how far you if you started your project and if there is any problem we can solve together. So I'm gonna ask you to share your screen later. So the basic thing we want to do is we want to develop an app that is user-friendly to older patients. So we think about how they gonna use that. So as we get older, the font and the phone, for instance, we want it to be either readable or increase in size. The contrast of the colors, let's say you want to write white on black or black on white. It's not be easy for the user to read black on gray or gray on black, something like that. So there should be a very high contrast, although sometimes we tend to lean towards looking at the colorful output, but we think about the user first, especially if we are dealing with some older patient. For younger, maybe it's easier. Then we think about the steps that the patient will take from login, and then when they enter the data, how easy can make that step easy for them to accomplish the task. The last part is how can we generate a report that's useful for the patient, and if they are sharing this information with their family doctor, how can we develop something that's user-friendly for the other end the caregiver, for example, or the medical provider. Does it make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, if there is any question, let me stop and we can work on getting that resolved. So before we start, how far are you guys with your product or version 0.1 of your app? Or
So I already designed the app, but I just got like starting work on the app, but I got stuck at the making like the data for the user and everything. That's where I got stuck. So I can share my screen in a while to show
okay,
you
let's do that. Yeah.
Now, okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So this is my app. Can you see my screen? So here is I designed like the app, but I got stuck like, what should I do with this, like the user info and everything else?
Okay, so we can use different things. So now you are using the list view. You are using, can you, okay, hit all information and the tab on the left side, right click and make a duplicate. So in the duplicate, you can rename it anything else. Let's say copy.
Here.
On the right side, on the right, no, go all the way to right. You can name it number 2, for example. All information, the label on the right side.
Oh, here.
Number 2.
Okay.
So if we make any change, at least you have your number 1. So here, go down to the detail on the second row here on the right corner. Go down. Here, yeah.
Okay.
Detail. So this will show you the information. So we have 2 views. One view is we look at one line of the user information. So this is what we are doing right now. So we are using the user information. So this is what in your sheet.
I used the sheet that was provided with the.
Yes. So if you change the source, go up, the green source, go to the user, for instance. So now you have the user information, and that's one line. So if you
so if you'd like to add another user,
so if you want to add another user, if you go to on the right side, there is general, and then there is option. Go to options, and then you can maybe edit form, the next to option, edit form. Allow user to edit. So this, you'll see there is a pen on the top right.
Over here.
This where they can edit their information, for instance. If the user like used the app and logged into the application to the app, and then the user can edit his information by himself, right? That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. If we want to click done, if we want to add another user, we can add that from this page or from a different page. If we wanted to add it, let's say from this page, then you can, you see on the left side middle section, there is a plus, black box, plus sign. Here you can add, and then there is just in the middle, in the blue section, there is a button. Go down the middle line. Yeah, here. Don't know. Go up a little bit.
Up,
the blue,
okay.
and then the button. Yeah, one.
Bottom part, this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
this one. So if you click on this, so this will have the option of adding new patient or new
Okay.
user. So in the action side, on the right side, you can click on this, and then instead of showing notification, click on showing notification. You will have more options. So if you scroll down, there is an option for form screen, show form screen. One more. No, one
This
more.
one,
Yes,
show form
yes.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you now click on that, and yeah, click on the button that you set, the blue button on the screen. If you click that, yeah,
this one, go.
This one, go. It will open information for new. If you want to identify a user, for instance, go to the sheet, the source sheet on the right side, and then point to the user sheet. This is where you can add. So this is how you add, or let them add another user, or let's say they want to add their daughter, their wife, husband, son. So this is how we do the adding part or editing part for the information.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay. Excellent. So any other questions from other fellows? We have 10 fellows. Welcome, everyone. We just started, so Wiam has a question. So we went through how we can overcome how to add or edit information for a specific row or user, for example.
Okay.
So we have someone. Salam, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, Farzan, welcome. If you have questions, raise your hand, or you can speak right away. So I'm gonna go over some of the basics, as I said. So I'm gonna share my screen, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. So there is a way to start a team. For instance, you are seeing here, if we started a new project, if you click, it's supposed to start a new team. Let's see. At the left corner here, before your name here, you can start a new team. And let's say INR project number 01, for instance. And then the size of how many users. Continue. You can invite your users for now, and then you can copy the invitation. For now, I'm gonna skip this. Okay, let's go. So here you can start a new project the same way we did Glide app, and then you can name it. Perfect. 01, for instance. So you can create from Google Sheet or like tablet or Excel here. So I'm gonna start from, let's say, glide table. It's gonna be the same information, but basically what you want to build either in Google Sheet or the glide table is here. If you look at this, it's the editor, data editor. So in the data editor, you can look at either on the left side, there are tables where each table has variables each variables has some information like records. So for instance, this could be a patient information. So patient number 1, patient number 2, patient number 3, or students, student number 1, student number 2, and so forth. And then for each person or patient or student, you will have their age, for instance, their date of birth, their gender, whatever variables you want to have. This we can name the table users or students or patients. Then you can identify other things. For example, if I want to categorize, for instance, the patient will have x-rays, will have lab work. Then we can say first number 1 lab, number 2 x-rays or imaging, so forth. So it's like a category. For each category, we can add more information. Let's say we can add imaging to the category, or explanation about the category, or we can count how many in the category. We can get relationship to get this, but we want to build some way to organize our findings. Does it make sense so far? Any
Yes.
questions?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so in this, they divide the users into a separate column or separate table where they collect the user information like name, email, photo. These are the basics for the app to work as far as collecting information for individuals. So we have two options. Option number 1, we can make the app public for anyone to look at. It's like an article or journal or website where you just browse data. That's for public. We don't need any information about the user. But if you want to build like what we are doing now, an INR for a patient, then we need to collect the information for the user, because user number 1 will enter their data, and then user number 2 will enter their data in a different line or place. This is why we want to get their information. And the basic information, name and email, and then we can put a photo or image or any shape or something for just display purposes. But the email we're going to use as identifier, because each person will have a different email address. They could be, they have the same first name, same last name, but we use the email as using different users to identify which one is which. It's like date of birth. So in our app, we can modify things. So let's say I'm going to keep the same user table where there is a name, there is an email, and then photo. I can add more information here, but for now, I'm going to just leave it like that. For the things, I'm going to change that. So instead of the name, I'm going to add to the name the email address. So for instance, patient on number 1, they will add their email address here. So for instance, this one. So this is the first patient, for example. And then when the other user come and enter some data, their email will be here, just to relate this to the patient or the person who is using the app. So let's say patient number 2 enter something else. So this is their information will be saved under their name here. So this is what we call the background, or the working behind the scene. So when they enter, let's say this is patient 1, then patient 2. If they want to enter their, instead of quality, let's say INR, then another one for PT, for instance, PT or PTT or something. So the INR for patient number 1 will be 3.24, for the other one 2.3, something like that. So see here, it's not collecting the point, the decimal. So I have to edit it. Here I can edit the precision to point like this. Does it make sense? So here, patient 3.4, and then 5, and then for instance, something like that. So this is the INR. When the patient enters them, it will come to the INR section here, or column. So I will create a form where they will enter their name, they will enter their email, and when they add new INR, it will come here. So the next patient will come as a new row. So when they enter their name, let's say maybe it's the same patient number 1, they will come here, they will add their name, automatically their email, and then their new value. Does it make sense so far?
Yes.
This is at the background. I want to create a form where they can enter this from the app. So here I can create a new page. Let's say going to the things, and then I will add new INR concepts. For that, I can use the detail view instead of the list view. See here, list view. I want to get the detail. When you hit the detail, it will go collect the information from first line from that sheet. Patient number 1. We don't want this. So I'm gonna just delete all this information. I'm gonna add one button. I'm gonna say enter value, for instance. Okay, the action, it will open a form where the patient will get the form opened, and I can name it form for INR, for instance. So when they click on this, it will open the new form, and the sheet I want the information to go to, it thinks, right? So they will have their name, their email, their INR. These are the 3 variables that we just entered or talked about in this section, right? But we want to add, let's say, one more. We want to add the date. So we can add date and time, either the date only, date and time. Let's for now, let's leave it date and time. We can modify that date only or time. And then, okay. And then, where is it? Sorry. I wanted to duplicate this. Date entered. So date, and then I will. So when they enter the information, it will come here. Today is 8/24/22 at 1 p.m. It will come like that. So when I go here, I click that enter button, it will open the form where it's waiting for me to get a new line, new row for things. So the patient will enter their name, their email. But if they do that every time, they will be not happy, because we don't want them to enter the same data every time. So the computer is supposed to automatically get this information from their value in their user information. So they have their name and their email So for me, I want to be cognizant that the patient will not like it if they want to enter the same data every time. They will be angry. So I'm going to remove name. I'm going to remove email, but I'm going to add them automatically. So if you click plus sign, plus, I'm going to go down here. There is a option to enter current date, for instance. It will go to the date and then current user. Where is it? User email. It's going to be to the user email. So this is our hidden column or hidden information that will be collected from the user table automatically when they open and when they logged in with their information. So this is the patient. When they logged in, they will automatically, when they open this form, this data will populate behind the scene. When I click submit, it will be listed there. So let's say I'm looking at patient number 1, which is this one. It will add their patient number 1 and email. Then they have just to enter the INR. Today I'm 1.9. If we want more information, it will be listed here. But for this purpose, I'm going to delete the PT picture category. So all this. And then when they enter it, hit submit, I can come back to this or I can go back to another page. But for now, let's come back to this. So if I go to the table again, the first one, I'll see that they enter their email automatically. They put the value and automatically the date was there. To collect their information like the name, I can do it in another way. For instance, let's say, instead of this column, I can relate this email to the user email and then obtain their information, for instance, their name. This is called a relationship. So I'm going to create a relationship between this table and this table using the email. So we need an email in this table and email in this table, the same information, so that they can look at each other. So I'm going to do plus sign here. And then I'm going to collect relation. What the relationship will be between the email here and the other table users email. Okay, and I can name it relation things user. So between this table and the other table. So this will collect the email that's matching. Does it make sense so far? If there is any question, please stop me. So the next step is to collect their name. So I'm gonna add a new variable and collect it name. That will be a lookup column. And I want to look up using this relationship. And in this relationship, I want to get the name of the patient. Okay, and I can get there also not only their name, but I can get their photo, for example. I can look up their photo. So it's going to be the same relation, but here I'm going to get their photo. See? So now whenever they enter their email, this will automatically populate. Their relationship is there, so they will populate their name and their photo. What they need to do is they just add one variable. It's the INR variable. Does it make sense? So if I want to change the user, for instance, Alan. So when Alan comes in here, he will, INR is 3.9, submit. So if you go there, It will be Alan, but it will have their name, their photo, and the date automatically brought up, but they entered only the value for the variable for the INR. Does it make sense so far?
Yes.
So the next step is to collect this data and display it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to display the same information that we are collected for this patient. Let's say they want to look at their numbers. So we can add here a list where they can, it's called inline list. But that list comes from the things only we want their information. So we want their information. So we have to use a filter where the email address is the user email address. Include the user email address. So you want only the information from the table here, this table, only the lines that has the email that the user have. So there are only 2 lines for this user. Does it make sense? Then we can work on displaying this. Instead of calling it things, we can call it INR log so far, for instance. And we want only to show the INR. We don't want to show anything else. So this is the INR, this is the INR. If we want, we can add the date. Let's say we want the date. So the first one didn't have the date. We can add the date there. Let's say August. It was yesterday, for instance, at 2 p.m. So this is yesterday value. This is today's value, for instance. Does it make sense so far? Any questions? I'm gonna stop here and ask you to reflect and say what do you think so far? Am I going too fast, too slow? You know, these things you don't know something new. Share with me your thoughts.
Excuse me, I don't understand how to make a relation with the name and email. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. You're welcome. So I'm going to share again. So the relation is we want to get, okay, I'm going to go to the data and editor view. So what you want to do is you want to relate this table to this table. One way to do is to see whichever unique identifier here is unique here as well. So the most thing that we can use is the email, because everybody has their email attached to them, for instance. You are not using multiple emails. You can use multiple emails, but for the sake of this app, we're going to use one email for the patient. That could be a different thing. Instead of the email, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add an ID at the hospital or other. When you have chart, they have their own ID number. So why don't we use ID? It's better than email. Okay. Let's say I want to create a unique ID, what's called row ID. It's going to work similar idea like the email. So here's the IDs. Could be patient ID, could be whatever you name it. I can rename it. Patient ID, for instance, user ID, anything. It's going to be the same idea of the email, but it's going to be unique. So each line or each user has a unique ID. In the past, I told you it's unique email, right? So this is the user. So each user, they have their own ID. So wherever they do anything with their ID, I can come back to this table and I can tell who did that thing. Let's say what their name, what their email, what their photo, any information they are listed in this table, I can collect it with only one variable. This is the relationship. So whenever they enter, let's say here, I'm gonna add patient ID. So whenever they enter their ID, let's say this is the patient number 1. So when they enter the information, we want them to enter the ID, patient ID. Okay, and then they can enter the data of the INR. Let's say they have 4.2. This information will come automatically because in the form we already created that the date will automatically come, the email will automatically come. But we want their name. So to get that, we need to relate this to the table of the user. So the relationship will be on using the ID, patient ID from this table, this ID, with this user, this column in the table for the ID. So for me to get this information using this, I'm gonna create a relationship. So to do that, I'm gonna just create a new variable here. I will call it the relationship patient ID with user ID. I'm gonna go to relation. So the first variable in this table is patient ID, right? This, I want to relate this with the users and patient ID. So whenever they enter their ID here, there is a relationship to them. It's gonna stop there. Okay.
It's clear, thank you.
So this is the patient ID. This is the relationship. And using this relationship, I can obtain their other information. Let's say I want to obtain their name. So name from user table. That will be a lookup. So I want to look up their name. I'm going to use a relationship. Which one I'm going to use? The patient ID, user ID relationship. I'm going to go to their name here. So it's going to come right away here. If I want to obtain their photo, I'm going to just duplicate this, look up, and instead of their name, I'm going to say their photo. And in the relationship, I'm going to use this and I'm going to look their photo. So it's going to come here. Does it make sense? I want their email. So I'm going to go copy this, duplicate it, and instead of table, I'm going to say email. I'm going to look up the same relationship. I'm going to obtain their email address. I'm done. So now I can obtain anything from their table using only one variable, which is the ID. Did I answer your question right? Or
Yes, thank you. I understand now. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Any other questions?
Can you please share the last part again, the inline values which you had put in?
Yes.
Once again,
So,
please.
yes. So when we come back to the display, when we are going to display the information that we collected, that could be blood pressure, could be blood sugars, or in this case, the INR. So whenever they enter the INR, it will go to this table. It's going to be INR day 1, INR day 2, and whatever days or time they enter the information, right? So I want to collect only their information, not the other patient's information. So I'm going to use that with their email, or in this case, with their patient ID. I can only collect, let's say, this patient have the same, they went day 1 and then they collect day 2, and let's say day 3. Okay. Let's say this is tomorrow. So for this patient, they have INR on this day and on other 2 days. But we don't want to display the rest of the information here for patient number 2, patient number 3, and so forth. So we have to limit or filter this data according to one patient. To do that, I'm gonna delete this for now. I'm gonna add the inline list, or the list of information that I want to display, inline list. And I want this list to come from this table where I saved the INR, for instance. So this will list all the information in that table. We don't want that. We only want the information for this patient, patient number 1, and these 2 variable, patient number 1, or these 2. To do that, we have to use a filter. So go to option and then go add filter. And in the filter, you can use a unique information like their ID or their email, for instance. Let's use their ID. So whenever there is an ID, that's including their user ID or screen ID. Then it will list only this information from the 3 lines related to this patient. And then I can play with what information I want to display. So this is just to limit the information from the table. And then when I want to display things in this list, I want to display INR. I want to display the date, and that's it. So this patient had 3 things done in 3 dates. If I change the patient to a different patient, they may have someone else. Okay, that's oh yeah. So if I change, it will change. If I change the patient name or patient user, it will change according to what they have in that. Let's say patient number 2. They don't have any here in the list because on the table here, I don't have patient number 2 data. But if I add it, let's say this is the patient number 2. Let's say patient number 2 has the ID here and the high ID here. So they have 2 lines related to them. They have their own information as far as the INR. When I look at their here, the list will include their 2 values. The first value has a date, the second value doesn't have it. I can add the date here for increment. So now it will have the value and the date. Does it make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I activate like an alert system, like alert in the apps to be like if someone entered like unusual INR too high or too low, so it can give me like announcement?
Perfect, excellent. So this is how we can do it. So let's say I'm gonna go to here, the table where things are added, right? The INR. So I'm gonna add, let's say, duplicate. It's gonna be a template, let's say. In that template, it will show up as an alert or something wrong. Let's say alert text. I can say in that message, hey, you entered wrong value, something like that. Try again. Is that your question?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
So this will be saved in this table, but it's not gonna show here, or it's not gonna show in the form unless we activate something. So we can say, for instance, when they enter the value, let's say here, I can limit this value. When we use this number, I can limit it here, the minimum value or the maximum value or the default value. Okay, I got minimum value 0.1, for instance. I don't have, do we have a maximum value here? Let's say, leave it there. Okay. So instead of saying you entered a wrong value, let's put a star here where there is, if they have a INR more than 3.5, it's high, more than normal, right? It's out of the normal range. Let's say the range is 2 to 3 or 2.5 to 3.5, whatever range you want to. But if it's more than that, then we want to put a star or message here. Okay, so the message, we can get it here. It's gonna show in any INR, but I want it to only show when the INR is more than 3, let's say. So for this, it's not gonna show the message. For this, it's gonna show the message or the alert. To do that, I'm gonna use another column here. It's called if. So if the value in INR is more than 3, then we will show this message. If it's less than that, then no message will be shown, no alert. So I'm gonna add a new one here. Instead of this, I will say if then. Okay, so I will alert if more than 3 INR. So I'll go to if INR is greater than 3. Then I will show what? The alert text. Otherwise, I'll leave it blank, fine. So see, here is 3.4, it will show. 3.4 it show, but less than that, 2 or anything 3 or less, it's not gonna show. The same here, when I look at here, it will show, for me, I want, don't show the alert, but the if then alert. So alert if then, if more than 3. So see, It's only for this, the information is here. And I can change this instead, because you want the alert to be big. So instead of the date here and the alert here, I'll put the date here and the alert if here. So instead of hey, you entered wrong value, I can change that into, let's say, you need to call your doctor or something. Call your I don't know, his eye, something like that. So it will show here only when the INR is more than 3. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it's very clear now.
Good question. Any other questions? If not, let me go over one other thing. So this page is the INR value, how to add, how to display them. How about the user? If we want them to edit, add information about their themselves. So we went over that with Wiam earlier in the meeting, but I can create another page or tab, and then I will name this tab as user info. And I will point that to the user tablet or table. And it can be as list or can be as detailed. Let's say use detail. So this is the first information about that user. If I change the user, it will change information about the second user, or the third user will be here. Does it make sense? It's just displaying the information from the user table. They have their name, email, and photo. Name, email, and their photo. Okay. So let's say I want to add my photo here. So how do I do that? I'm gonna let them either edit it. So edit the form and allow the user to do that. It will show them the icon where they can edit with a pen. So if they click here, it will list the information here and they can modify whatever information they want. If it's only the name, it's listed the name. How about if I want to edit the email? No, not the email, but the photo. So I can display the photo similar to this one. So I can copy this. And instead of name, I can say photo. So this is where the photo file is saved. This is a web link to the photo file. If I want to display the photo here, I can add it as a photo, as image, and then it will the user photo here. So it will show this one. So far, so I can modify my name and I can modify the location of my file for my photo. I'm gonna show you, let's say, so if I look myself here, I might find some of my photo. Let's say I want to use this photo. So I'm gonna just copy the location of that image or the image address. And when I go here, if I change this, it's supposed to change. Oh, photo. And if I say done, it will show my photo. So this is one way. If you have photo file online, so you need the address of that photo. and the address will look something like that. It's a website like HTTP, and then the location of that server, and then the type of the file and whatever. It's listed somewhere there. So you can get a photo. If I want to change, I want to this and this, I can just copy that, edit it, and change, copy paste here. And when I say done, it will change that. So this is one way to edit the photo. The other way is to let the patient maybe upload from their device. Maybe they want to take a photo or using their camera, or maybe they already have some photos in their file, in their phone or in their computer. In my case, I have some photos in my computer, for instance. Or I can use, let's say, for instance, let's say I'm a girl and this is my photo, so I can download this. So I have a photo on my files in my computer, and for some reason, I don't like this photo. So instead of using the internet, I can just upload a file from here. To do that, I can click on the plus sign and add image picker. So I can pick up the file. So there is an option to pick the file and put it in the column photo. So I can delete my photo here, delete, and then I can add one more here. So it become on the computer there, or the app. You upload it from your computer. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Let's say we want them to edit their date of birth. In the table, they don't have their date of birth here. So I'm gonna add it. It's gonna be date, only date. Okay. Let's say 1/1/1950, 1/1/1930, 1/1/1990. So this is their date of birth. If I want to show their date of birth here, I can add a text where it indicates their date of birth. You can name it anything. And they can edit that if they want to edit that. So they mistakenly add their date of birth wrong. They can come here and they can say, I was born in 1920. This is how you do it. Any questions so far?
So I have a question.
Yes.
If we want, like, the patient would like to pull the information, the history of the INR that he entered or she entered, and like to show it to his provider.
Yes.
So can he like, can we make like an option to put it like in one folder?
Yes. So what we can do is we can create a report where they remember when we put things here, we want to create a report like this and print it or email it to the provider, or copy paste it to a text file and then send it over the email or something like that. So for that, it's gonna be multiple steps, but the idea is to collect all the information for one patient and put them in one sheet. So I can create that. So let's say I can create a new table, or maybe another way is to, in this table, I can add them here. So I can add So first of all, I want only the patient categorized into lumps, like the patient number one, all his INR. So I need to relate, going back to the relationship, within this table using the ID. So I'm gonna create another relationship, ID to ID INR table.
Okay.
Relationship. So it's gonna be ID to this table ID. And it's gonna be multiple. So here I can collect all the information. Now I can look up INR values for this patient. So I can look up, and from this relation ID to ID, INR, and then here. So this will give me the relationship of all the INR listed for one patient here, second patient here, third patient here, something like that.
Okay.
And then we can play as far as how we can display this information in one sheet. So I can create another sheet or tab. I can say this is a report. Oops. It's referred to things, and I can say this is a report. It's going to be a detailed. I'm going to delete all this except the patient name. So I'm going to delete email and other information. Here, I want only their name. If you prefer ID, that's fine, but let's delete the ID. And then the picture we can add or delete. Let's delete the, we can add their photo, for instance, if you want to. So this is their page. And then you can add an inline list where it referred to the INR values. And we want only INR. Oops, and the INR in collect, yeah. Yep. So this is the list of INR for that patient instead of name. So you can create something like that. So, and you can name it report, for instance. This way you can get the recent INR for this patient, and you can share this with the provider. You can send an email. Let's say I want to send an email. I can create a button here, and I'll say send an email, or share the report, or send email with report, for instance. For this, you can the action is gonna be either send compose an email, where it will open the email address for you, where you want to identify which the receiver. You can customize that. Let's say Dr. A or Dr. B or their email address.
Okay.
And then the subject is the report. And then the body will be their collected information, the INR, this list.
Okay.
So whenever they click or hit send report, it will compose an EMR and an email with all these values, and we can add their name and their date of birth, for instance. That can be sent via email, or you can print it, or you can, I don't think we can fax it, but there is ways to copy paste, for instance, send it as a text message, or copy it to the clipboard, and then paste it in the whatever Word file or other documents that you want to use it for.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Any other questions? Monica?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for hosting this session. This is so informative. So I have two questions. So should we have the time with the time zones like EST or PST? So we will, because like all of our users are not belonging to EST, so there will be like from different countries or different places. So we can we have the time zones? And that is the first thing. And the second question is, when we are pulling the reports, right? So in the reports, we are having the INR numbers like in a list, 3.9 or 4.0. Rather than having it in a list, so can we have it in a form of calendar? Because I see the calendar button there, like the list calendar. So if we can have the numbers in the calendar form, like if we see in the calendar day 1, 3.5, day 2, 3.6, or kind of thing. So it will be easier to track, and the patient can also like easily understand what's going on from the last 5 days. Can we try to pull that report in the calendar form maybe?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So to do that, let's see if I can show you how to. So for the calendar to work, I'm gonna create a table for you, a tab, and then we'll work for them from there. Let's say a new table. Can I say? Okay. In that table, we want the name of the patient, the ID, patient ID, and then we want the INR value, and then we want the date. So you need to create something like that for the calendar view to get the information for a specific patient. And I'm going to just copy for the sake of this discussion. So patient number 1 has multiple INR, done the same name, patient 1, patient. Dyslexic today. So patient number 1 has INR done in 3 days. So Thursday it has 2, then 3, then 4, let's say. January 1, 2, and then. So in January, it was okay. February, it went up a little bit. March, it went up like 4. For me to create a calendar, I can create a new tab. That's a calendar. And I go to the table INR. And then I can see the calendar list. And here we want to put the information according to what they want us to do, the end date and the start date. So it's going to be the same date. Now we have the view. for the dates in the calendar. The information we want to display is the INR, and we don't want the ID of that patient because it's only for one patient. So the date and the INR, the date and the INR, date and INR. Does it make sense now?
Yes.
So we have the information for that patient. You can create a report that way, so the patient understands, and you can also get the information sent to the provider if they want that.
Okay. And also
The
one
first question. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. So if the patient is testing the INR very frequently, can we alert the patient to this app saying that, because like if we are like checking the IMR very frequently, maybe the food he's taking, maybe the medication interactions he's having, that might change his INR levels. So can we just tell the patient through the app that you have to like measure the INR like within this frequency, like once in a week or once in a month, or is it really necessary to have that information or notification, or like?
So there is always ways to do things. So for instance, if you want to notify or alert or tell the patient to do something, you can use notification, or you can use alarm system where they flash or something to grab the attention of the patient if there is something that you want them to do. To do that, you need parameters where you want to, when they enter their information, you look at this, and then the computer will decide, hey, we want you to do something. So according to the data they entered, let's say this patient has therapeutic INR, then went over, and next month went over, we expect it to be higher in April, right? So we can show them, hey, you need to follow up with your doctor. If we have 2 INR more than 3, let's say, the cutoff, or maybe any INR more than 3, they need to call their doctor, okay? So I can go to that INR page. The list is here, right? I can start a hint where in that hint I will say, call your doctor immediately. Okay, and then I can put the reason. Your INR is supra therapeutic or whatever. Okay, this is the information that they can get when the INR is high. But I want to display that only when they have INR more than 3, right? For the first patient, maybe they don't have that, or another patient, they don't have even INR done. So this is not good when it is displayed for everyone. We want it only when there is INR more than 3. So to do that, there is an option here where I can hide and show. It's called visibility, using certain conditions. So I can manipulate the condition where the INR is more than 3, for instance. If the INR is more than 3, then show this. If not, then don't show it. So it's invisible. Did I answer your question?
Yes. So our outcome, like our outcome from this app, what I understood is like we are just making an app where we can record all the numbers, and we can pull out the results and send an email to doctor. So, but we are not specifying the reason why the INR was high. Is it because of medication interaction, or like whatever the reason happened between the course? So can it be the limitation for our app?
No, the more question you have, the more information you want to collect. So to answer your question, we need to ask them, did you take your medication? Did you take antibiotics, for instance, because some antibiotics will interact with the comedian, for instance, or did you eat green, whatever that component in the salad or that interact with. So we can add these questions to show up here. So let's say before we call the doctor, maybe we can ask them some questions. Question number 1, for instance, I can, question 1, did you eat green stuff, whatever, okay? So again, this will show up only when the INR is greater than 3. Oops. So if it's 3 or less, no, but if it's more than 3, this question will pop up. And then we can let them answer this question using these values, which yes, no option or check mark option. But we need to collect this and put it in somewhere in the table. So maybe we can add that to the INR table where they if this is positive, then we will need to see if they add green stuff eaten, for instance. So when they say yes, it will come to this column here. If it's not, then will not bother. So let's say duplicate use of antibiotics. It's going to be yes or no. For instance, it's balloon. Okay. So here we can ask them where is here, for instance, we want to ask them, did you use antibiotics? The question number 2 will be, did you use antibiotics? So the answer will be something like that. Going to the antibiotic, yes or no. So if yes, slide to the right, for instance. So if they slide to the right, it's going to be yes. Okay. And if yes, it's going to show here somewhere in the table. That is checked. So if it's checked, that means they are using antibiotics. We want them to call the doctor immediately and see what they can change antibiotics or stop the comedian or something. So we can add a button where they say and then here we can notify them, call. There is a way to phone number, dial phone number. And then the phone number, we can put the physician phone number if we have it. 517, whatever number they want to call. But we want only this to show up when the use of antibiotic is positive. Is not empty or is true. So if they didn't use antibiotics, it's not going to show up. If they use antibiotic, then they will be able to hit this and call the physician or whatever doctor. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, Dr. Nadir. It's so perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as question number 1, the time zone, you can play around with a time date variable. So this is Eastern time, 1 p.m. for instance. If you want to convert that into something else, you can add, let's say, time in California. So the time there is -3 hours from this time. So you can calculate that using math, or there is a way to make a difference of date or something like that. Date time calculation. So you can form the date differently and calculate the time, so that when the doctor sees that, hey, you checked at 1 p.m. Eastern time, that means it's 11 or 10. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So there is ways to do it.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? Or anyone of you wants to share what they did? I know Pam shared some of her app. If not, that's fine. Maybe you can work on your app, you can work as a team, you can work as a group. And then maybe next week we can talk about how far you are going. If you want the whole group to work on one app, maybe it's easier. Any way you think you are doing it, it's fine with me.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Dr. Nader.
You're
Thank
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
so much, Dr. Nader.
You're welcome.